Hello and welcome to the Reds Report, Series 10, Episode 1. And just like Daryl Clark tomorrow, we have fielded our strongest lineup possible from the players or the presenters that were available. So, as always, Steve, I'm not even going to start with the name. If you're watching on YouTube, he's on his new bed. So leave a comment if you want.
Beautiful, lovely bed. Look at that. Antique brass, that. Beautiful. Matching light. Look at that. Yeah. Come on.
You know that since he moved house, money goes to money, doesn't it? On the other side of the Pennines, in his writing studio, because not only does he write vlogs, blogs, and presents this, he's now also an accredited writer for, let me get this right, Ian, is it Football World? What's it called? Come on, tell me, help me out.
Football League World.
Football League World. He is the Barnsley FC writer for that one. Hence, we're always sharing the articles. Ian, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Good to see you all again, boys.
Yeah, we're back. And of course, we could not have the first episode of a new series without our star striker. He is the man, one of the voices of South Yorkshire football. It is, of course, Adam Oxley. Adam, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. My 20th season with BBC Radio Sheffield this year, so I am officially very old.
Wow.
And we still prefer Rob Staten. I'm sorry, am I on mic?
Understandable.
When we talk about anniversaries, because it just came up in my head, 10 years of Reds Report, 20 years Adam Oxley. This is the year that Phil Hall, who was known to us all, he's been doing hospital radio commentary from Oakwell for 51 years this year. And hospital radio itself in Barnsley at Oakwell, it's in its 70th year. So more about that later on in the season. But Phil, if you're listening, huge well done, the legend that he is. Well, Steve, let's start with you. Summer period, lots of sport on the telly. What have you enjoyed watching most over the summer? And don't say Love Island, I mean like sport-wise. There's been the Euros.
Obviously, we watched Euros, didn't we? And we're sorely disappointed. So I'll gloss over that. Been watching Olympics, obviously. Been watching a few sports. Been watching women's volleyball, same as everybody else. I noticed that there was a really bad wrist injury, but I'm all right now, so don't worry about that. But no, Summer Olympics has been really good. I've enjoyed it.
I take it you're working from home then, seeing as you've been watching everything that's going.
Obviously, I've been working, as I always do, very hard to keep the country running.
Of course. And running you have done, yeah. Ian, what have you enjoyed? Because the Euros, we built it up again, didn't we? And then we were, I don't know if it's let down, but, Spain won on the pitch. The Dutch fans won off the pitch. I just need to get that in there because that's the furthest we got. What have you enjoyed watching?
I did watch quite a lot of the Euros. It was great. It was nice when there's a couple of matches on a day and you can get away with watching just wall-to-wall football. It finished as I probably expected, really. My expectations were quite low, I think. We just don't know how to, like teams like the Spanish, the Italians last time just know how to win a tournament, and we sadly came short, second best in that final. But my chosen sport after football is always going to be the cycling, and I'll the Tour de France. And when it came over in 2014, I think, when it started in Yorkshire, went over to see one of the stages as it went over to Sheffield on day 2, and I'd love to go and see it over in France. So that was me glued to the telly for 3 weeks.
And I don't know if it's this year or next year. I saw it in the news earlier this week. The Tour de Yorkshire, one of the stages is fully set in Barnsley. It literally goes all over. So if you can't make it to France,
I can make it over.
Hawthorne or Kendry, I know it's slightly different, but it's still road racing, isn't it? So the Tour de Yorkshire. Adam, what is the summer like for you? Because we know obviously there is no football, but it doesn't mean you get 6 weeks off like me. Just got it in there. So what have you been doing work-wise, and what have you enjoyed watching?
Well, seeing as I get paid to watch the Euros, it's been a really, really tough summer. When you're expected to talk about it for an hour in an evening on air, you've got to take in the games. Got to take in the games, and it's tough. Look, I'm very lucky that there's very few sports I don't like watching. I quite like golf. But the majors, not any kind of run-of-the-mill tournaments, but when the majors come round, always love that. So the Open was great to watch, and a few others. And Olympics is just continuation of Euros. We're getting our lads into watching a few different sports. Showing a couple of 3-year-olds of fencing wasn't probably the brightest idea in the world, but you live and learn as a young dad, don't you?
Oh yeah. And talking about records and time, am I right in thinking it's on the day or a couple of days? Your Guinness World Record is exactly a year old now that you set.
It was on the 30th of July was the year to the day since I became equivalent to Usain Bolt in having a world record. Yeah. So me and Usain, respect my brother. We both hold current world records. So there you go.
I've always said it. So let's talk about Barnsley FC then. Another season about to start, another head coach about to start, another season with new players in, new players out. We'll talk about Daryl Clark in a minute. So far then, Andy Dallas is going to borrow. Gone to Barrow. Jack Shepherd's going to loan to Bradford. We've brought in Matthew Craig from Tottenham on loan. Jackson Smith from Walsall. Connor Barrett, who I believe is probably more of for the under-23s central defender. The biggest news, of course, besides Georgie Gent signing from Blackburn, is that crowd favourites and Barnsley legends Mark Roberts and Conor Horahan have re-signed for the Reds. Now, I know you wrote an article about this, Ian, so let's go straight to you. It is a little bit of a breakaway from the mould of what we've seen over the last few years, isn't it? Not only the fact that the age more than anything, and obviously Conor in a new role as well. Yes,
and I would probably put that down to the sporting director, Mladen Sormaz. I think he's been quoted as saying, as in it, that we want experienced pros and the youth. So maybe they are ditching that little bit of a data spreadsheet slightly. Matthew Craig looks a decent loan signing, I think. The Georgie Gent from Rovers was quite well thought of over there, even though he went on loan. Supposed to have had a really good time in Scotland. So you've got a bit of the youth. I think that midfield with Connell fighting fit now, then Craig would be quite good. But it's nice to have those older heads at the back, isn't it? And I think if you put Roberts, a fully fit Pines in there, plus one or two others, I think would be quite good. I think we're going to be quite a big side, strong side. So I do like the fact that they've not completely torn up what was the spreadsheet, but they've certainly gone away and thought. There was times last season we knew, didn't we, that team when you're in a bit of poor form, it cries out for some older heads to help them through it, and they didn't quite have it. I'm pleased that they've gone down that route and gone for some experience, and they've got two great ones there.
Steve, if we were going to bring back a midfielder and a defender, we couldn't have brought anybody better back in neither position, really, could we? Because I think
could have brought Adam Hamill back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or Jerry Taggart. Let's not go down this road, shall we?
No. I mean, available now and still being able to play at this level.
Yeah, true.
Don't be some apparate. It's episode 1. Come on.
No, it's really good, isn't it? Let's face it. It's going to put a few extra bums on seats, which is what we wanted. It started off as a slow transfer window, and we didn't think we were going to get anybody. Horahan was touted around, and there was rumours of him going to Wrexham and this, and then again everybody's going to Wrexham, but it sounds right. But no, I think the boards and Mladen's done a cracking job actually up to now. I still think we need one striker, if not two. I know there's rumours of the guy from Mansfield, which would be nice, but I'm quite optimistic, I've got to say, with what signings have come in and what I've seen in a couple of the pre-season friendlies. I watched the Roma one on Wednesday, was it, when they played Roma down at St George's? I know it were basically a second-string team, but that Georgie Gent played, and he looked different gravy. He really did. Looked very tidy. But then again, some of the youngsters did. Theo Chapman, Yanganathan played. Dyer's lad played up front. And not bad at all, I've got to say.
Yeah. We know that last season, you could say that really, your team is only as good as the head coach. And last season, quite early on, we started getting a bit of doubts with some of the comments. So we've got a new head coach. Daryl Clark's come in quite early on in the season. Now, Adam, I know you've interviewed him already a couple of times. I've wrote down here when I was thinking about it this afternoon. To me, he comes over as a very clued up, hungry coach that identifies with the town, the club, the players, and the fans. Because whenever he's sort of talking, I see more personality, and this is not a dig at anybody previously, but I see more of his personality coming out in these interviews than him just answering questions. What's been your? I know it's early on, but what's your take on the appointment?
I've done a few interviews with him. Even went down to Loughborough to the training camp and did an extended chat with him down there, which was. They've been really good to do those this summer with a few of our managers and other people just to do something a little different. And he started going off on one about agents at that point and transfer window and other things. It was quite refreshing to hear someone like the first time you've met them and just this, be open enough to go off on one about something. I've liked what I've heard. The kind of staff at the club that I've spoken to around what he's been like away from the cameras and the microphones have been positive in terms of him making himself available, going and chatting with people. He seems he's got a decent track record at a few clubs before coming in. It might not necessarily scream out like that when you look at his record, but, I think the clubs that he's been at, Bristol Rovers and Cheltenham and Port Vale, the fans of those are held him in reasonable regard, and he a little bit no nonsense, probably a bit more like Duff than Collins. I really like Collins and thought he did a decent job at Barnsley, but he certainly didn't warm to the supporters like Michael Duff had done, irrespective of results or whatever else. And it's yet another new era. And I kind of reflected on this a little bit today in some of the bits I was doing, that when you look at it in the lens of the coming season, Daryl came in really early in the summer and has had plenty of time to speak to work with the existing players, or the new players have come in, and that's a really positive thing. Now, when he was appointed, we were all looking at it pretty much through the lens of the previous season, and the fact that it had taken a month after Collins had gone, the playoffs, 3 or 4 other names had turned the job down. So it's amazing how a few months can kind of make a situation look a little bit different. And with the signings that you talk about, I've met Mladen Somas a few times already this summer. Been quite impressed by him. Like Ian was talking about, comes across well, comes across knowledgeable and whatever else. Fingers crossed there's some little bits there where people can hook onto and maybe hope for a bit better this season, even if there are some sizable holes still in the squad in terms of a challenge again this year.
Yeah, and I suppose it always will be, won't it? When we talk about what we need next. As Steve said earlier, you're hoping for at least a striker. Jallo was injured. I heard today he didn't want to go into exactly how long he'll be off for, but he'll be off for a little while. Josh Benson's injured as well, but he's hitting the rehab centre, so hopefully he'll be back soon. And I suppose this is the time of season. It's the domino effect, isn't it? Because a club won't let a striker go until they've got a replacement. Interesting to hear the Mansfield presser today when he said there's definitely people that'll be leaving, and he can tell us more on Saturday. And then I put 1 and 1 must be 4. That must mean that their striker is joining us after them. Anyway, And is it just up front that we're needing people then, Ian, or do we need some reinforcement elsewhere as well?
Need a keeper, another keeper. I know they got Jackson Smith, but I think another keeper. I think he might be one. Was he about 22, 21? I think he could well be. Won't surprise me if Killip maybe goes out on loan, or goes if we get another keeper in and Jackson's number 2.
Well, if you missed what Ian, just to interject, if you missed what Daryl Clark said today, there is a keeper imminent in terms of coming in.
Guy from Chelsea, possibly the one from Chelsea, is it?
Yes, potentially. He's one that's been talked about. So again, that would be a youthful signing as well as Smith. But yeah, so look, that's a position that may well be filled too.
Yeah, I think he's hinted at that's imminent, but until that signature dries on the paper, you can't say anything, can you? But they seem to be going for. Well, they were interested in that guy at Arsenal, weren't they? Who's now gone probably to Spain, and both of them are like 6'6", 6'7". So we're going for a big keeper, and then like I said with Pines and Robertson that at the back. I think we're going to be a big squad, but a keeper, and you can never have enough strikers for me. Whether this Davis Keeler-Dunn does come off. I know Mansfield have signed a striker from Newport, whether he's the replacement. Be interesting to see if Keeler-Dunn plays tomorrow or whether he's injured and being rested and then suddenly becomes a red over the weekend. But either that or he plays and scores 2, so we don't know. But yeah, a couple of strikers and a keeper for me.
And last year, we spoke a lot about the lack of leadership. We mentioned Horahan. We know he probably won't play every single match because he was coach as well. But if you then look at the spine, Steve, you could potentially, if you have Roberts at the back, you've got a captain in Connell and Horahan in the middle. Cosgrove, I think I'm fair to say, is of that age that, you've got a decent spine to build around, haven't you?
Yeah, I would say so, but I think Connell is the ideal choice as a captain with Roberts as his vice captain.
Yeah.
He had his issues at the beginning of last season, but Kit has come back fighting. But every time he plays, he's always encouraging, shouting, talking. And to be honest, he doesn't ask anybody to do anything that he's not prepared to do himself. He puts himself about, and I think he's an ideal captain. I think we mentioned it last season, didn't we? That Connell's definitely captain material, if not now, the following season. And now we're in the following season.
Yeah. I'm glad we've kept him because the fear was at the end of last season he was going to go, wasn't he? And so not only are we chuffed he's captain, we're glad he's staying.
Yeah, 100%. Other good news. So I know we're waiting still on some positions to be filled, but in other news, the EFL charges. So there's nothing further against the club. Mr. Conway and Mr. Lee have both been fined. Well, for us, it's a decent amount. For them, it's probably pennies or change in the back pocket, but still. And that's a chapter, isn't it, Ian? That's a chapter of the club that we now no longer have to talk about because looking back, they came in all guns blazing and it was going to be this fantastic, and it didn't really work like that, did it?
No, and it's just always been in the background, hasn't it? Another kind of, when things haven't been going great, it's just another piece of negative news that's been hanging over the club. And I think what was interesting was when you sort of read the press release, it was, the club have been open and honest. They've worked with the EFL from the start. That's been recognised by the EFL. We've done nothing wrong. They have to pay the legal costs, but basically nothing more. We can move on, draw a line under it, and let's move on. And it's pleasing that has been resolved, and it just a relief, if nothing else.
Yeah. Nothing against any of the signings that we've made because we love Conor Horahan, we love Mark Roberts, we love them all. But the biggest news from Oakwell, or the best advert for Oakwell for Barnsley as a town and Barnsley FC as a club, probably came last Saturday. Obviously, the Callum Simpson versus Zach Chelly title fight at Oakwell. I watched it from the East Coast. We said it before we started recording. There's been many a times Barnsley's been on telly. And, you look at it and it's a football match, isn't it? But this was different. This was the first time a boxing match had been held. Love it or hate it, the club, boxer, the local authority and everybody involved deserve, I think, a huge round of applause. Steve, we'll start with you because it looked from start to finish something that everybody in Barnsley got behind. It put a positive spin on Barnsley because too often, it's all quite negative when we talk about our little town. But that showed the world what Barnsley can achieve when we all pull together, doesn't it?
It were brilliant. It were a fantastic night. I wish we could get that sort of atmosphere in East Stand for a game of football rather than just a boxing bout. But there you go. It was run professionally. It looked good. It looked good on telly. Cameramen. I'm sure it's the same cameramen that they have at Olympics, because they keep picking out all pretty ladies in crowd, don't they? They just must have a special thing. I didn't notice,
to be fair. I'm watching.
Did you know? What were you watching? Don't tell me they were watching boxing. That's rubbish for a start. No, boxing, not a big boxing fan, got to admit it, but you've got to get behind Callum. And to be honest, he never looked in any difficulty at all on Saturday night. It would have been nice if he put him down, but he didn't. But I think it definitely opens a doorway for more events like that at Oakwell. And I know they were worried about, it might do some damage to the pitch, so we'll just open the East Stand and what have you. But if they're going to be pulling crowds like that and making money for the club, let's get him done. Let's get his next fight there. Let's have it actually in middle of field, and let's fill every stand. There's money to be made there, and I think they're realising that with the new CEO and what have you that we've got in now, and it's the part of the club at the minute that is being run really well.
Yeah. And it's right that, Ian, isn't it? What Steve just said. The venue itself lends itself to so much more than 3 o'clock kickoffs of quarter to 8 o'clock kickoffs for the Friday night. There's so much more that can be done, as shown last Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I know. I think a lot of praise goes to John Flatman. I think I like what he's come out with. Like Steve alluded to it, and I know Khalid beforehand when he was in that position had kind of mentioned that they want to make Oakwell, being used 7 days a week or all year round. And it's right, for long periods, the ground sat there doing nothing, not bringing any money in. And
you get a nice carberry though.
Well, thanks. But yeah, I think when you listen, when you read some of the quotes from John Flatman, they want to continue to do that, whether that's more boxing or concerts or whatever. If it's sat idle for 2 or 3 months in the summer, not doing anything, make some use of it. And like I say, the
a bit like Carlo, really, isn't it?
Exactly. Well
exactly.
said. Well said.
There you go. You see,
had to be said. Yes.
Had to be said, mate.
I'll be 2 minutes and I'm coming down. All right. Yeah.
But yes, I agree, and I think the club recognise that, and I think with Flatman, they've got the right man to drive that on. I think, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. Adam, you were there. You were commentating on the boxing for another first in your career. On telly, it looked brilliant. I bet it was 20 times better just being there just before that ring walk. I mean, the couple of warm-up fights before obviously were very good. I forgot the name, but the Irish kid who came out, and then the first bout was sort of like, it was just 2 kids on sweets just going at each other. Then we had the women's fight as well, which wasn't bad, to be fair. And then the ring walker at the side of the East End, when Callum came on, I mean, the decibels upped a few levels. What was it like from arriving there to commentating on Callum's win?
Special. Yeah, real privilege. Put something out beforehand that 2008 was when I first started being the Barnsley reporter for Radio Sheffield. So, 16 years later, to be sat on the pitch, literally on the pitch, just behind the Sky commentators with us. Rob had worked it out that Radio Sheffield hadn't done a boxing commentary for 16 years as well, since Clinton Woods back in the day. So for Boxer to give us, some rights, we had to pay a little bit, but it was very fair to the taxpayer, I would argue. And it was just fantastic. I'd never thought about doing a boxing commentary. I've always kind of enjoyed it. Followed a few boxers around since I became full-time 6 years ago. Callum being somebody that came on our radar about 2 or 3 years ago now. We've had him in the studio a few times when it's been football related, ahead of Wembley. We had Dalton Smith, who's a big Wednesday fan, and Callum, who's a big Barnsley fan in. And I've kind of kept in touch with Callum a bit in his fights, and the fact he's gone here, there and everywhere around the country to put himself in the position. He was the one that kind of told Boxer that, I can make this Oakwell gig happen. And he delivered, the town delivered, everyone delivered. The roar when he first came out before he did the walk, then when he got in the ring, was just fantastic. There were points which me and Rob kind of took the headphones off a little to have a listen. And the way everyone was gripped in the fight and got behind him and everything else, it was just fantastic. It was a real night to be proud as a local person. And you just hope that the club, the players, Callum, can kind of keep feeding off each other, because he Whether he can win a world title, we'll see in the future. But his trainer thinks so, his manager thinks so, and the way he's going at the minute, look, could we see Callum Simpson back at Oakwell next summer, maybe in the off-season, after he's had a few defences of the British title, maybe going for a European title or something? He certainly thought, he's open to it. I've got to admit, after seeing that, the thought of doing that again, but with the ring in the middle and all sides of the ground full, wow, that would be something. And you could actually now, that's not just a pipe dream now.
No,
I think that is genuinely something. If Callum can keep winning and keep moving, they've showed now what they can do. So yeah, big credit to everyone involved. It was a very special night and one that will live very long in the memory.
Yeah, and credit to the Barnsley fans, because I know there's loads, and if you miss one off, it's horrible on the list. But I know for a fact that, for instance, the Addersley Reds follow him all over. And, when he was not so well known and he was on the undercard somewhere, they travelled the buses down to London.
The players have gone with him. A few of them have gone and followed him around. So it's, look, I made this point on it as part of the broadcast last week. With some fighters, it's kind of like, I support the club, but it kind of like they might not be really into football, but it's their local team and they might put a shirt on and reference it. That is not the case here. Callum is a proper Barnsley fan, and the players are invested in him as well. And I think that came across, that real genuine love between all the different parties it shone through.
100%. And I was sort of hoping that after the fight, which he obviously won, then the talk of the town will be this tomorrow evening's opener against Mansfield. But given what's been happening around the country, or what's plagued the country for the last week or so, but now, we are now under, this is the eve before a new season. I'll be honest, I think to me it feels a little bit different. I know, again, we have a new head coach and we've got new players, but I think actually from a club point of view, the players they've brought in, the language that's being used, I know we've not talked about it yet, but this fan advisory board, and some people might say, no. But there's a lot of clubs that don't listen to fans, and now they've got this board with a broad spectrum of people, coach organisers, landlords, people that travel away, people that only go up, all sorts. And it just feels like, after everything that's happened this last couple of seasons, we're as one again, almost. So it's the season's opener tomorrow evening, and I'll go clockwise as it is on my screen, which means Ian, you're first. Realistic expectations for the season for Barnsley FC as it stands. I know players, some might go, some hopefully will come in, but what is a realistic expectation? Because I think it's a given, or is it a given? I think the league looks on paper certainly a lot tougher than it did the previous two seasons.
Well, you do get giddy at this time of season, and as we say, it's the hope that kills you. But I think that there is that bit of optimism. It is going to be a tougher league, I think. But I also think teams will beat each other because the standard is a bit higher than last year. So you do look at the three teams that came down are going to be strong. A couple of two of the three that come up from League Two are going to be strong because of the money they've got. But a realistic proposition, I'd like to think, would be pushing for the playoffs again, because we are still an unknown. We don't know with Daryl Clark. We don't know with some of these players. There's still a couple of weeks of the transfer window. We may be slow starters like we were under Duff. You get a new manager and it can take a while to click. But I'd like to think we're pushing for playoffs deep into the season, I think. I wouldn't think automatic. I think we'd have to be really good for automatic. But you never know. But I just think when you look at the way Birmingham and Rotherham are spending and some of the players they're signing, they've got to be favourites for going up. But yeah, I'd say lower ends of the playoffs.
All right. Adam, what would be, you think, it's difficult, isn't it, but a realistic expectation? I'll put my hand on the line. I think if we can finish in the top 10, but my reckoning is we'll finish somewhere between 6th and 10th. I think that will be a really solid season to then hopefully build on, as long as history doesn't repeat itself with managers leaving and players leaving. But it almost feels like we need a foundation, don't we, to then sort of jump onto. But Adam, what about you? Realistically, what should Barnsley be looking at?
I think you're not far off from what both of you said. Realistically, if we're talking state of the nation as things stand now and not at the end of the window, then I think kind of between the 8th, 10th, 12th, that kind of scenario in the division is realistic. I don't think currently Barnsley have the striking options or depth to be one of the top teams in the division. And neither do they have a really good keeper at the minute. What Barnsley's strengths are at the minute is that there is a real jam-packed kind of central defence area with depth, and there are 4 really quality operators in midfield. You know, Kane's gone, and Hourahan and Craig have come in, and you look at those 2 players, literally, and I put this question earlier, there is youth and experience. I said that to Luca Connell today. You've got Phillips and Connell who are fantastic, and those 2. So whether it's 3 of those play, 4 of those play, or whatever, then there are some strong areas. So I know I've seen people in predictions writing Barnsley off, putting them in the lower half of the table. I don't think that. I honestly don't, because of those 2 areas of the field. I just think... And Daryl Clark thought today he seems confident that he will get, the club will get the options they want. They're just having to wait a bit. But until we know that those couple of extra strikers and that keeper's been secured, like Ian was talking about earlier, I don't see how anybody can hang your hat on, oh yeah, they're definitely going to be in that 6. The problem I think this season will be is that all sounds very sensible, but Barnsley made the playoffs the last 2 years, made the final 2 years ago. And I think there'll be a lion's share of supporters that will probably just expect that that's the case. And when they see that league table on a week-by-week basis and Barnsley aren't in that top 6, we'll get phone calls. You'll get people coming to you guys. There'll be loads of bile on social media. And it's just whether everyone can kind of temper those expectations a little bit and see some progress being made. That's where I think the rub might come this year. And again, this next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll see how much that gets aggravated or not, and whether the squad can be one that can push on a bit. But that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Steve?
Oh, okay. So we ideally want a decent... What I'm getting from what you've all said is we want a decent start so that the minority of people with opinions on Twitter and Facebook actually get behind the team, hopefully, because we're in top half at the table, because we seem to have some supporters that are quite negative at times.
No, never.
No, God forbid. What a load of arseholes. I'm going with Ian. I think we have got some good youngsters from what I've seen of the last couple of games. It seems as though he's interested in bringing youth through, so that'll be nice to see the likes of Younger Nathan, Chapman, Jallo, etc. integrated into the squad. The older Eds, obviously we were Ann and Roberts, can only be a good thing. I think we've got the basis, and I'm quite optimistic that we've actually got the basis of quite a steady little squad. Yeah, we need additions. Yeah, we need Watters to actually hit ground running and prove that he has got a pair of football boots that can put ball in back at net. But again, it's going to come back to support the guys on the pitch. Let's not be too negative. I'm never negative for first game. I only pick on somebody after first game, so we're all right up to now.
He's going to take the Kane mantra.
Well, who knows? Who knows? I'm hoping Phillips pulls his finger out all the way through season, so that'll be.
Oh, crikey! 34 minutes it's taken. Wow.
I didn't realise you were counting. Can we get Rob Staten next time? Do you think? But no,
Was
it? All right. I like that Toby Foster and all. He talks sense. I think playoffs is not unreasonable. Top 10 would be nice, but we've got the basis. I don't want to be building a base. We've got a base. We've got a base of kids. They didn't get a look in last season, or very limited. And that was one of my main complaints about Collins. For me, he didn't use some of the younger kids enough. I think Clark will. I think we've got some good lads there. A couple of additions. I don't see any reason why we can't be pushing for that sort of playoff a top 10 position. No problem.
I shared it in our little WhatsApp group earlier this week. 9 content creators, journalists were asked their prediction of League One. All of them, all 9, forecasted Birmingham was going to win the league. 8 out of the 9 said Bolton would finish in the top 4. 7 out of 9 said Huddersfield would be there. And Peterborough same, and Rotherham as well. 8 out of 9 said Rotherham. When you look at Barnsley, the forecast was from the EFL put Barnsley in 5th. Gabe Sutton put Barnsley 17th, and that was the furthest 12 places. So
yeah, but we know what he's all about, though, don't we? Let's be honest.
On average, Barnsley came out as 10th, which I think, listen, this is what people think. We never thought last season, a season opener, 7-0, that, we don't have to go into that. So, some quick fire questions before we go on to the match tomorrow then. Let's start with you, Steve. The team to watch next, and I know, don't say Barnsley because it's a Barnsley podcast. What team do you think will surprise people in League One next season?
Can't we have a crib sheet for this sort of stuff? Couldn't you rung me an hour earlier and said, now then, Steve, have a look at table.
Really professional.
Stick a pin in it and pick a team that you fancy watching next season. One that's going to surprise us.
Or a team to watch. It could be
your obvious one that's going to be one to watch, because everybody will watch it, because they'll need to make another bloody Disney, whatever, Amazon bleeding series out. It'll be Wrexham, obviously. They're trying to throw some money about. But it just goes to show, just because you've got money, you don't necessarily get your player.
No.
So, but I think Wrexham is going to be, because they're riding a tide, aren't they, of goodwill around the world. But you're going to have your usual suspects up there. Obviously, your Birmingham, Huddersfield, Rotherham, Bolton. Okay. Unfortunately, Bolton.
Ian.
Similar to Steve, really. You still, you expect Charlton to kick on with Nathan Jones as manager. Yeah. Be interesting to see how the 3 promoted sides play. I mean, I've seen some of Keeler Dunn's goals, and they played in those. I know it was League 2. They played some really good football. So it'll be interesting to see how they play. And likewise with Stockport and Wrexham. So yeah, Bolton seem to be spending quite a bit of money for the League One clubs. You expect the Championship clubs coming down because they might still have some money from being in the Championship, but they're spending quite a lot. So usual suspects, to be honest. It'd be interesting to see, like I said, the new teams who come up, how they play, how they do they come up on a crest of a wave, or do they struggle? But yeah, usual suspects for me. That's why it's going to be a proper bum fight to get promoted in it, because your Peterboroughs, your Blackpools, your Boltons, Barnsleys are all every year up there. Then you throw in the bigger teams that have come down from the Championship with bigger budgets. So yeah, usual stuff really. No surprises.
Adam?
Yeah, I think the 3 coming up could be ones to watch and could be strong this year. The circus definitely comes to town when Wrexham come, by the way. I went down there with Sheffield United for the FA Cup the January before last, and wow, there were an inordinate amount of media and everything else. So get prepared for that when they visit Oakwell this season.
Did you get Ryan Reynolds' autograph?
I tried. I got within about 40 yards of him. That was about closest I got. Then the restraining order kicked in. So it is what it is. I personally would look across the South Yorkshire patch at Rotherham and Mr. Evans, because Steve has done what Steve does and recruited a lot of players. He's got 13 in already. He's looking to get more. The impact that he had at the back end of last season, like him or hate him, was sizable in many ways with Steve, before somebody says it. And look, Tony Stewart's backing him. It's a bit of a masterstroke by Tony to bring Steve Evans back. It's a completely different vibe around that football club. They brought in some really shrewd operators like Kelly, who used to be at Coventry, like Cam Dawson from Wednesday and Net, Reece James, a couple of the lads that finished top with Portsmouth last year have come in at the back. Johnson Clark Harris up front, adding to Nombe, who they paid £1 million for, and Hugo. And I'm not just saying it because obviously I've got a bit more knowledge of Rotherham in the patch. I think they look good. I think whereas Barnsley are kind of hoping for an outside crack at the top 6, I'd be very surprised if Rotherham aren't in the mix for top 2 this year. But what it will do is we'll make for a couple of very good games on BBC Radio Sheffield, particularly that one's a Monday night. So yeah.
Monday night, Thursday afternoon, Sunday morning, because for Sky, any time will count.
TV rules, my friend. TV rules. I said jokingly last night to my missus that, some of the fixture changes, there's one at 2 a.m. and she didn't blink an eyelid. She was like, 2 a.m. Yeah. You can see it coming. American audience, why wouldn't we have a game at 2 a.m. because it'll serve the Americans. So
all them people in America, of course, they want to watch Barnsley versus others.
They've tried moving some of the games over to America, haven't they? Was it Birmingham?
It'll come.
Yeah. Before we go to the Mansfield prediction, who is your early prediction, Ian, for fans player of the year? I know they're not all through the door as yet, but of the signings and what you've seen so far, is that an old favourite? Is that like a Roberts? Is that the people fall in love again with Conor Horahan and with his accent? Why wouldn't you? Or is it somebody like the young loanee from Spurs? Is it maybe a youth player that's coming through?
I probably have to pick one from 3. I don't think Horahan, because I don't think he'll play enough matches. I think Luke O'Connell is a fan's favourite anyway. He's going to play, hope, touch wood, fitness-wise. He's going to play every week. Don Pines is a massive fan's favourite. And I think if you can keep him fit, I think there's no reason why he wouldn't get voted it. He looked good in the spell that he came in March earlier in last season. And then I'd throw in maybe an old favourite like Roberts or somebody. So I think Connell and Pines are fans' favourite anyway. If they played to the standard they've been playing, I think one of them would probably nick it. But them two definitely, and then maybe Roberts. Yeah. Or maybe the player we've not signed yet.
But could be. Steve, if you were going to get a shirt tomorrow, maybe the nice new pink one, and you had to have a player's name on the back, which one would it be?
Unbelievable. Why would you? Why? Anyway, taking Barry Cotter out of the equation, although I do like Barry Cotter, I wouldn't have him as a fan's favourite. Connell all day long for me. I think giving him the captaincy will give him another facet to his game. I think he'll really step up to it. He just strikes me as being the sort of kid that will take that on board and we'll really push for it, and I think it'll have a good effect on Connell. Whereas beginning of last season they get it kitchen for a few games and he were garbage, and he sort of went back into it. Well, he were when he went back into his center. He didn't play as well as he could. I think Connell will be captain fantastic next season for me all way.
I tell you why I like Connell as captain, because of the fact that Horahan and Roberts are on the pitch, and Horahan might not play everyone, but and I'm not nicking his limelight, but in the interview with Adam today, they talked about sometimes that can weigh you down, can't it? Sometimes that can actually stop you from being the player that you are, because you've got almost like other responsibilities. But I think he's got some wise men around him. I'm not going to say old because that wouldn't be fair, but he's got some wise pedigree players around him that can advise him, that can do whatever. So I think 100%. And I think this could be the year that Connell, shows us or shows everybody that what a player he can be. Have you been impressed? I know you interviewed him today, didn't you? Well, it came out today, didn't it? You interviewed him. He is. He don't seem to have changed since he initially joined the Reds. And this could be his year, couldn't it? I suppose there's nothing stopping him. He's got people around him. He's not the main person. He's not got people that think more about their own future or anything else. It's a fresh-looking midfield. Captain fantastic, potentially, Adam.
Certainly so. He's always been very measured when I've spoken to him. Second time this summer I spoke to him at the Garrison when they had the launch event for the Callum Simpson fight, and back then, you know, Conor O'Halloran had just re-signed, and he was talking a bit about that. And I asked him at that point about the captaincy and whether he'd like it or not with Conor coming back. And he was like, well, yeah, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. And that's kind of the player he is. Look, he's quite humble. And I think the fact that he's there and he's backed up by these two fantastic club legends behind, that neither of them are the kind of personality that are going to overshadow him or overtalk him or anything else. I can't disagree on that. My pick for a fan favourite by the end of the year, they say never fall in love with a lone player. Well, it kind of happened with John McAtee a little bit last year, and we wait to see what will happen with him. You know, links with Bolton, links with Wrexham, some talk today. Like, could he even come back to Barnsley at some point? It'd be brilliant if he did, by the way. I think it'd be a fantastic signing if they could get him. Matty Craig will be the fans' favourite at the end of the year. That's my bold prediction for the episode. My hat is being hung on that prediction. I saw him at Donny last year. I've seen him once already in a Barnsley shirt against Derby. He got 2 assists on that day, and that is a midfield full of people that have already proven themselves at Barnsley. But that kid his attitude's great. He can play a number of roles, and I just think people are really going to like him and take to him. And it wouldn't surprise me in a few years' time if he's playing top-end Championship or Premier League. He's a really strong signing, and I really like the kid.
Can I just add to that I can name another footballer who had a really good season at Donny, and not really done much after that, has he? Not mentioning any names, obviously. Anyway, I'll leave it there. At least he's not gone to West Brom, sit on bench.
Right, lads. End of the episode. 46 minutes in. It is now time. Put your hats on the line. It's Barnsley versus Mansfield, the League One opening match of the season at Oakwell tomorrow evening. Ian, your score prediction, please, and which Barnsley player will score first for the Reds?
I've been thinking all day it's going to be a score draw, but I'll be positive. I'll go a narrow 2-1 win, and Cosgrove will get a goal.
3-1, Devante Cole. No, I'll go 3-1 because it is my favourite score. But I'm gonna go. I tell you what, I'm gonna go for Captain Fantastic getting one on the opening day of the season. Luke O'Connell. Yes, heard it here first. 17-1. Anyway, Steve.
2-0. Fortress Oakwell this season. With the guys we've got that can come in and that can play across that back 4 or 5, I think we'll be really strong. I really do. So I'm going 2-0 and an opening goal for Max Watters, I think.
Very nice. Are you on duty tomorrow at Oakwell, Adam?
No, I'm not on duty tomorrow because I'm travelling all the way to Exeter on Saturday to watch Rotherham. So we are ticking that one off early in the season. What a treat that will be.
At least it won't be. Well, it probably won't be cancelled or postponed for rain, will it?
I hope not. I know there's previous with Exeter, so yeah.
Listen, safe journey on Saturday, and I'm sure we'll see you soon again here.
What score then? What score? Don't leave him. Make him get a scoring. Come on. Yeah. What you having?
Adam.
I'm going to go where Ian was starting, actually. I'm going to go with a 1-1 tomorrow. I would love Barnsley to win it, obviously. Probably Cosgrove. I thought he showed some things in the playoffs at the end of last year to suggest that there's a better player in there. I think he certainly can have a good year with Barnsley this year. And yeah, it'd be great for him to get off the mark. But I just think with Daryl Clark coming up against his hometown club, Nigel Clough leading Mansfield up, and first game Friday night, I don't know. I can see them getting a goal and taking something. And look, 7-0 last year didn't do Barnsley a lot of favours, did it? So,
and you know what? If we are trailing with 80 minutes to go, we put Callum Simpson on top, and he'll just knock somebody out and then anti-goal, innit? So it can always be done. Adam, safe journey on Saturday morning all the way to Exeter. Go Exeter. And of course, as
Up the
always,
Grecian.
Ian, you'll be writing up a match report, I suppose, after Friday night, so on Saturday or
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow for a post-match pint, I think, and then
yes,
we
are meeting tomorrow for a liquid refreshment after your ahead of your long journey back to the wrong side of the Pennines. Steve, what is the bed like? Seriously, was this the first time you've been in it, or because you lay there?
Right, I'll tell you what, mate. I tell you what. This is where the magic happens.
Every Thursday when we record.
I can't believe you've asked him about the bed.
Simba mattress, mate. Lots of money this cost, but it's beautiful. Other mattresses are available, but dead right.
You've been listening to the Red Report. Proud to be part of the TalkSport
and no swearing
Network.
either.
No swearing at all. We'll leave that for episode 2, which will be out next week. And thank you for joining us. And as always, Friday night, get behind the lads, get behind the club. You Reds.